My hands were shaking as I stared at the place card with my name written in Bethany's perfect cursive. Lorraine Mitchell, it read, sitting alone on a folding table next to the catering truck, while everyone else's names were elegantly displayed on the ivory cards at the main reception tables under the white tent. The October wind whipped through the parking lot behind the country club, carrying the scent of exhaust and dumpsters instead of the roses and eucalyptus I could see decorating the real guest tables. I'd driven 4 hours from Columbus to be here, wearing the navy dress I'd bought specifically for my sister's wedding, clutching the crystal vase I'd special ordered from Tiffany, the one that cost me 3 months of careful budgeting on my teacher's salary. The same sister who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who I'd helped through her divorce 2 years ago by letting her and her kids live in my spare room for 8 months while she got back on her feet. "Bethany!" I called out, my voice catching in my throat as she glided past in her flowing white gown, accepting congratulations from actual guests, people who apparently mattered enough to sit at real tables with real centerpieces. She turned, and for a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe. But it was gone so fast I wondered if I'd imagined it. "Oh, Lorraine, you found your spot," she said with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her new husband, Preston, stood beside her, his arm possessively around her waist, looking at me like I was something unpleasant he'd stepped in. I know it's a little different, but we had to make some tough choices about seating arrangements. You understand? The words hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened, and I could feel my face burning with humiliation as other guests began to notice our conversation, their curious stares making my skin crawl. "Tough choices," I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. The crystal vase felt heavier in my hands, like it was made of lead instead of precious crystal. "Bethany, I'm your sister. Your only sister. Only." Preston's laugh was sharp and cruel. "Oh, come on now. You're being dramatic, Lorraine. It's just a seat. You're here as a guest, not family." The way he said guest made it sound like charity, like I should be grateful they'd allowed me to attend at all. That's when I understood. This wasn't about seating arrangements or wedding logistics. This was about erasing me from their new life, their upgraded social circle. Preston came from old money, the kind of family that owned country clubs instead of working at them. And apparently, a public school teacher sister who drove a 10-year-old Honda didn't fit their image. "You're right," I said quietly, surprising them both. My voice was steady now, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. I am just a guest. I looked down at the Tiffany box in my hands, remembering how I'd eaten peanut butter sandwiches for lunch for 3 months to afford it. How proud I'd been to give my sister something beautiful for her new beginning. The tent full of laughter and clinking glasses seemed to mock me. I could see Bethany's college friends at the head table, the ones who'd always made me feel invisible during family gatherings, whispering and glancing in our direction. "Well, then," I said, tucking the Tiffany box under my arm, "I suppose guests don't need to leave gifts." The color drained from Bethany's face so fast, I thought she might faint right there in her designer gown. She knew exactly what was in that elegant blue box because she'd been dropping hints about it for months. Not just any crystal vase, the limited edition Tiffany Aurora collection piece that cost $4,000 and had a 6-month waiting list. The same vase she'd shown me pictures of obsessively, calling it the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and joking that it would be the perfect wedding gift if anyone loved me that much. I'd worked 3 different tutoring jobs after school and given up my summer vacation plans to afford it. I'd even called in a favor with my college roommate who worked at Tiffany's flagship store in New York to get on the wait list. But watching Bethany's panicked expression now, I realized she'd never actually expected me to come through with something so extravagant. She'd probably told Preston I'd show up with some discount store trinket that they could quietly return or donate. "Lorraine, wait," she stammered, reaching for my arm, but I stepped back. The movement felt powerful, like I was finally standing up straight after years of making myself smaller for everyone else's comfort. You can't just take that. I mean, you brought it for me, right? For my wedding? Preston's face had gone from smug to concerned in the span of seconds. He was clearly doing mental math, probably realizing that a teacher who could afford a $4,000 wedding gift might have more resources than he'd assumed. Or maybe he was just figuring out how much it would cost to replace something his new wife had apparently been bragging about to her friends. "I brought it for my sister," I said quietly. "But since I'm just a guest here, and guests apparently don't belong at family tables, I think I'll keep my guest-level gift to myself." The words felt like breaking free from chains I hadn't even realized I was wearing. I turned to walk away, and that's when I heard Preston hiss under his breath, "Bethany! What the hell is she talking about? $4,000? But I didn't stop. My legs felt shaky, but I kept walking toward the parking lot, past the perfectly manicured gardens and the string quartet that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Lorraine, please!" Bethany called after me, her voice getting higher and more desperate. "You're being ridiculous! Come back and we'll figure this out!" But I could hear the panic creeping in, the realization that she'd have to explain to Preston's family and all their high society friends why the centerpiece gift she'd been boasting about had just walked out the door. My Honda looked embarrassingly small next to the row of BMWs and Mercedes. But for the first time all day, I felt proud of something that was mine. I placed the Tiffany box carefully on the passenger seat and started the engine, my hands still trembling, but my resolve growing stronger with each second. As I backed out of the parking space, I caught sight of a woman in a sage green dress standing by the catering truck, someone I didn't recognize from the wedding party. She was maybe 60, with silver hair swept into an elegant updo, and she was watching the whole scene unfold with what looked like approval. When our eyes met through my windshield, she actually smiled and gave me a small nod, like she was saying, "Good for you." I drove exactly 10 minutes to the nearest Starbucks, needing caffeine and a moment to process what I'd just done. My phone was buzzing incessantly in my purse, but I ignored it. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I'd stood up for myself instead of just accepting whatever scraps of respect people were willing to throw my way. That's when my phone started ringing. Not just buzzing with texts, but actually ringing with the kind of panicked, repeated calls that meant something had gone very, very wrong. I finally answered on the 5th call. It was my cousin Marcus, and I could barely understand him through the chaos in the background. "Lorraine, where are you? You need to get back here right now. Bethany is having a complete meltdown, and Preston's mother is threatening to leave. What the hell happened?" "I left," I said simply, surprised by how calm I sounded. They made it clear I wasn't wanted there. "Well, you sure made your point," Marcus said, and I could hear something that sounded almost like admiration in his voice. "Bethany just realized what you took, and she started screaming at Preston in front of everyone. Apparently, she'd been telling his family that her sister was giving them some priceless heirloom as a wedding gift, and now she has to explain why it's gone." My stomach dropped. Of course she'd exaggerated the story. Bethany had probably spun some tale about how her loving sister was gifting them a precious family treasure, something that would make her look good in front of Preston's old money relatives. The reality, that she'd treated me so badly I'd taken my expensive gift and left, was a very different story. "But that's not even the worst part," Marcus continued, his voice dropping lower. "Preston's grandmother, the one who's apparently some kind of society matriarch, she saw the whole thing go down. She was the woman in the sage green dress by the catering area. Turns out she'd been watching how they treated you, and she is not happy. She just told Preston's parents that any family that would humiliate their own sister at a wedding isn't the kind of family she wants her grandson marrying into." My breath caught in my throat. The woman who'd nodded at me, who'd given me that look of approval, she was Preston's grandmother? The very person whose opinion probably mattered most to his family? Lorraine, she asked Preston's mother why the bride's only sister was eating by the garbage cans, while strangers got seats at the family table. And when Bethany tried to make excuses, this woman apparently said something about how true breeding shows and how you treat those who can't do anything for you. The irony was almost too perfect. In trying to impress Preston's family by excluding me, Bethany had actually horrified the one person whose approval she desperately needed. "Marcus, I need to ask you something," I said, gripping my coffee cup tighter. Did Preston's grandmother really say that? About true breeding showing in how you treat people who can't do anything for you? Word for word, Marcus confirmed. And Lorraine, the look on Preston's mother's face when she realized they'd just insulted the family matriarch by proxy. I've never seen someone turn that shade of white. She immediately started asking why Bethany's sister wasn't seated with family, and when Preston tried to explain that you were just a teacher and didn't really fit in with their circle. "Oh, no," I breathed. "Oh, yes." His grandmother looked him dead in the eye and said, "Young man, I was a teacher for 40 years before I married your grandfather. Are you suggesting that educators are somehow beneath your new wife's family?" The whole head table went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I felt a strange mix of vindication and secondhand embarrassment. Preston had just insulted his own grandmother while trying to justify treating me like garbage. The cosmic justice of it was almost too perfect. "But here's the thing, Lorraine," Marcus continued, his voice getting serious. "Preston's grandmother didn't just defend teachers in general. She specifically asked to meet you. She wants to know if you'd be willing to come back and join her at the family table. Apparently, she told Bethany that any sister who could afford such an elegant gift but had the dignity to leave rather than cause a scene was exactly the kind of person she wanted to know better." My hands started shaking again, but this time it wasn't from humiliation or anger. It was from the overwhelming realization that someone important, had seen my worth when my own sister couldn't. "She also mentioned something about your gift," Marcus added quietly. "She said anyone who could afford a limited edition Tiffany piece clearly wasn't someone who needed to be seated by the catering truck. She asked Bethany point blank why she'd treat someone with such obvious resources and class like a charity case." The admission hit me like a thunderbolt. Bethany hadn't just been cruel, she'd been stupid. She'd underestimated me so completely that she'd sabotaged herself in front of the very people she was trying to impress. "Marcus," I said slowly, "tell Preston's grandmother that I appreciate her kindness, but I won't be returning to the wedding." The words felt strange coming out of my mouth. When had I ever turned down an opportunity to make peace, to smooth things over, to be the bigger person? "Are you sure?" Marcus asked, sounding surprised. "This could be your chance to really show them up. Come back as the honored guest, sit at the head table, make Bethany squirm." But that's exactly why I knew I couldn't go back. The old Lorraine would have returned, would have accepted the invitation and tried to salvage something from this disaster. She would have been so grateful for any crumb of recognition that she'd have rushed back to prove she belonged. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Something had fundamentally shifted in those 10 minutes at Starbucks. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not going back to prove anything to anyone. I know my worth now, and I don't need their validation to confirm it. If Preston's grandmother wants to meet me, she can call me next week when this circus is over." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Lorraine, Bethany wants to talk to you. She's been crying and asking me to convince you to come back. She says she'll apologize, make it right, seat you at the head table. Tell her I said no." The words came out harder than I intended, but I didn't soften them. "Tell her that guests don't get to make demands about seating arrangements, remember? I'm just following the rules she established." "Jesus, Lorraine, what happened to you? You sound completely different." He was right. I did sound different. I sounded like someone who finally understood that respect wasn't something you begged for or earned through endless self-sacrifice. It was something you commanded by refusing to accept anything less. Marcus, can I ask you something honestly? In all the years you've known us, have you ever seen Bethany treat me like an equal? Like someone whose feelings mattered? The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Marcus sighed. No, I haven't. And I'm sorry I never said anything about it before. Then you understand why I can't go back. This isn't about revenge or making a point. This is about finally refusing to participate in my own diminishment. I took a deep breath, feeling something settle into place in my chest, something solid and unshakable. Tell them I hope they have a wonderful wedding. I'm going home. I was halfway home when my phone rang again. This time, it was Bethany's number, and I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Maybe I needed to hear what she had to say, or maybe I just wanted to see if she'd learned anything from this disaster. Lorraine, thank God! Bethany's voice was thick with tears and barely controlled hysteria. Please, you have to come back. Preston's grandmother is asking all sorts of questions about our family, about how we were raised, about why I would treat my own sister like that. She's making Preston question everything about me. And what did you tell her? I asked, my voice steady as granite. I tried to explain that it was just a misunderstanding, that you're sensitive and took it the wrong way, but she's not buying it. She keeps asking why you would leave with your gift if you felt welcome and loved. Lorraine, she's talking about cutting Preston off from his trust fund if he marries someone from a family with no sense of loyalty or decency. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car, looking at my small but well-maintained house with its flower boxes and welcoming front porch. For the first time in years, it felt like exactly enough. So this isn't about missing me or feeling bad about how you treated me. This is about your marriage and your access to Preston's money being threatened. That's not fair, Bethany shrieked. I love you, Lorraine. You're my sister. We've always been there for each other. No, Bethany, I said quietly. I've always been there for you. When you got divorced, when you needed a place to live, when you needed someone to watch the kids while you went on dates with Preston. But when have you ever been there for me? When have you ever considered my feelings or treated me like family instead of like some obligation you had to manage? The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear wedding music in the background, the sound of a celebration continuing without me, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was missing out on something important. I can fix this, Bethany finally whispered. I'll tell everyone there was a mistake with the seating chart. I'll announce how grateful I am for your beautiful gift. I'll make Preston apologize to you personally. You still don't get it, I said, feeling oddly sorry for her. This isn't about apologies or announcements or fixing anything. This is about the fact that you thought so little of me that you believed you could treat me like garbage in front of strangers, and I'd just accept it. And the only reason you want me back now is because your social climbing hit a roadblock. Lorraine, please. Bethany was sobbing now, her voice breaking with desperation. I'm sorry, okay? I'm so sorry. I know I messed up, but I can't lose Preston. I can't lose this life. You don't understand what it's like to finally have security, to know your kids will have everything they need. I was just trying to protect what I'd built. By throwing me under the bus? I asked, getting out of my car and walking toward my front door. By making me the embarrassing sister who had to be hidden away so your new family wouldn't think less of you? I never meant for it to feel like that, she whispered. But that's exactly what it was, Bethany. And you know what the saddest part is? You were so busy being ashamed of me that you never bothered to actually see me. You never asked about my life, my savings, my investments. You just assumed I was some struggling teacher who'd show up with a toaster from Target. I unlocked my front door and stepped into my living room, looking at the original hardwood floors I'd refinished myself, the antique furniture I'd carefully collected over the years, the oil painting I'd bought from a local artist whose work I genuinely loved. Not because it impressed anyone, but because it made me happy. I have a master's degree from Northwestern, Bethany. I own my house outright. I have a healthy retirement account and enough savings to buy your precious vase 3 times over without blinking. But you never saw any of that because you decided I was less than you the moment Preston's family showed interest in you. The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of unspoken resentment and missed opportunities for genuine connection. "What do you want me to do?" Bethany finally asked, her voice small and defeated. "I want you to stop calling me," I said firmly. "I want you to tell Preston's grandmother the truth, that you treated your sister badly because you were embarrassed by her profession and her lifestyle. And I want you to live with the consequences of that choice." "Lorraine, you can't mean that. We're family." "No, we're related. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me today." I sat down in my favorite reading chair, the one I'd splurged on last year when I got my promotion to department head. "I spent years making excuses for you, telling myself you were just stressed or going through a hard time. But today showed me who you really are when it matters." "Please," she whispered one last time. "I hope you find a way to save your marriage, Bethany. I really do. But I won't be part of it anymore." I hung up the phone and immediately blocked Bethany's number. The silence that followed felt like stepping out of a noisy room into fresh air. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel the familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach about disappointing someone or not being enough. 3 months later, I got a call from Preston's grandmother, Eleanor Whitfield. She'd gotten my number from Marcus and asked if she could take me to lunch. I agreed, curious about the woman who'd inadvertently changed my life. "I want you to know," Eleanor said over tea at her private club, "that what I witnessed at that wedding was appalling. In my day, family loyalty meant something. The way your sister treated you told me everything I needed to know about her character." "Did Preston go through with the marriage?" I asked, though I'd already heard through family gossip that he had. "Oh yes, though much changed afterward. I made it clear that his trust fund would remain frozen until he demonstrated better judgment in his choice of companions. Young Preston is now working at a bank for the first time in his life, and I believe it's been quite educational for both of them." I couldn't help but smile. Bethany had gotten her security, but not in the way she'd planned. "But I didn't ask you here to discuss your sister," Eleanor continued. "I asked you here because I was genuinely impressed by your dignity that day. You left quietly, with grace, when many people would have caused a scene. That takes real class." She paused, studying me with sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. "I'm on the board of several educational foundations. We're always looking for accomplished educators who understand both excellence and humility. Would you be interested in joining our scholarship committee?" 6 months after that lunch, I was traveling to review potential scholarship recipients, working with a budget larger than my school's annual funding, making decisions that would change young people's lives. The irony wasn't lost on me. Bethany's attempt to hide me from high society had actually introduced me to people who valued exactly what I had to offer. I never heard from Bethany again directly, though Marcus occasionally updated me. She and Preston had moved to a smaller house. She'd had to go back to work part-time. The fairy tale had turned into ordinary life with ordinary struggles, and apparently she wasn't handling the adjustment well. "She asks about you sometimes," Marcus told me during one of our monthly coffee dates. "I think she finally realizes what she lost. I hope she finds happiness," I said, and I meant it. But I also hope she learns to value people for who they are, not what they can do for her image. The Tiffany vase sits on my mantelpiece now, catching the afternoon light through my front windows. Sometimes I remember that day and feel grateful for Bethany's cruelty, because it finally forced me to see myself clearly. I learned that respect isn't something you earn by making yourself smaller. It's something you command by knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less.